He was the most feared Korean crime lord on the West Coast, a man whose name shut down entire streets from Los Angeles to Seattle. But that night, it wasn't him everyone feared. It was his mother. The building wasn't a casino or a nightclub. It was a private medical tower on Wilshire Boulevard, the kind of place where surgeons worked on senators and billionaires paid cash for silence. 23 floors of gleaming glass and marble overlooking the sprawl of Koreatown below. The elevators were locked, the guards were armed. Men worth hundreds of millions sat perfectly still in the penthouse suite, afraid to breathe wrong. Outside, the streets had already emptied. Korean restaurants along Olympic Boulevard closed 2 hours early. Shopkeepers locked their doors. Even the homeless knew to find another block, because Mrs. Sun-hee was visiting. And when the mother of wolves came to Los Angeles, the city held its breath. Inside the tower, Eli Turner pushed his cleaning cart across marble floors that cost more per square foot than his entire year's salary. 42 years old, invisible in his grey uniform, he'd worked nights here for 7 years. He knew which executives left cocaine residue on their desks, which doctors met their mistresses on the 14th floor, which politicians accepted envelopes in the underground parking garage. He knew because invisible men see everything. Tonight was supposed to be simple: wax the floors, empty the trash, stay out of sight. But then she arrived. Mrs. Sun-hee entered slowly, each step deliberate, leaning on a cane carved from dark wood with symbols that seemed to shift in the light, characters no one in America could read. Her hair was white, pulled back severely. Her hanbok was traditional, expensive, the deep purple reserved for royalty that no longer existed. Behind her walked her son. Dae-hyun wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than Eli's car. His silver-streaked hair was pulled back. Tattoos crept up his neck, dragons and tigers that whispered of violence. His eyes swept the room like a man counting exits and enemies simultaneously. Every man in the penthouse suite bowed: CEOs, cartel brokers, a city councilman, a federal prosecutor who'd been paid to forget certain shipments at the port of Long Beach. They bowed deep, holding the position, waiting for permission to rise. Eli didn't bow. He was 20 feet away, polishing the floor near the windows, invisible as always. He wasn't part of this world. He was furniture, wallpaper. He straightened anyway, placed his hand over his chest, lowered his eyes, not in submission, but in something older, and spoke 5 words. The words weren't English. They weren't modern Korean. They were something else entirely. Mrs. Sun-hee stopped walking. Her cane struck the marble floor once. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. Everyone froze. "What did you just say?" she asked, and her voice was soft but carried the weight of mountains. She'd spoken in the same dialect, the same impossible, extinct tongue. Eli looked up, met her eyes directly, and replied in words that should not exist. "I greet the mother of wolves." The guards reached for guns. Dae-hyun turned pale. The prosecutor stopped breathing, because what the janitor had just said was a greeting erased from history after the Korean War. A greeting tied to bloodlines and mountains and debts that could never be forgotten. A greeting no outsider was ever meant to know. Mrs. Sun-hee studied Eli with eyes that had seen empires fall. Then she turned to her son and spoke 2 words in English. "Clear them." The penthouse emptied in 90 seconds. Men who controlled shipping routes and political campaigns filed toward the elevators in silence, their eyes on the floor, their phones already buzzing with panicked messages. The federal prosecutor's hands shook as he pressed the button. A real estate developer who owned half of Orange County looked like he might vomit. Dae-hyun stood near the windows, his jaw tight, watching his mother with an expression Eli couldn't quite read. Anger? Fear? Both? 4 guards remained. professional killers in expensive suits, their hands resting near concealed weapons. They positioned themselves at the exits, their eyes never leaving Eli. Mrs. Sunhee moved to the center of the room, her cane tapping rhythmically against marble. She gestured to a chair, leather, oversized, positioned to face the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Sit," she said in English. Eli hesitated. His cleaning cart was still by the window. His shift wasn't over. This wasn't his world. But something in her voice made refusal impossible. He sat. Mrs. Sunhee remained standing, studying him the way a jeweler studies a stone under light. Her son moved closer, his presence filling the space like smoke. "Where did you learn that greeting?" Dae-hyun demanded, his English perfect but accent still present. Eli met his eyes. "I learned it before I learned English." "That's impossible." Dae-hyun's hand moved toward his jacket. "That dialect died 60 years ago, in the mountains, during the war." "Some things don't die," Eli said quietly. "They just get hidden." Mrs. Sunhee raised one hand. Her son stopped moving immediately, like a dog called to heel. She circled Eli slowly, her cane tapping, tapping, tapping. "Your name," she said. "Eli Turner. Your grandmother's name." Eli's throat tightened. "Why does that matter?" "Because names are debts," Mrs. Sunhee said, "and debts do not forget." The room felt smaller suddenly, warmer. The lights of Koreatown spread below them like fallen stars, the restaurants, the karaoke bars, the churches with their neon crosses. "Her name was Gia," Eli said finally. "She came to America in 1953. Married a black soldier she met in Busan, changed her name to Joanna Turner." Mrs. Sunhee stopped moving. Her cane struck the floor twice. "Gia of the mountain village?" Eli nodded. "The one who carried messages during the war?" Another nod. Mrs. Sunhee's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air. Dae-hyun stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Mother, what is this about?" She ignored him. Her entire focus was on Eli now, her eyes searching his face like she was reading text written beneath the skin. "You were taught the old words," she said, "by my grandmother, before she died. Why?" "She said they were important, that I needed to remember them." "Did she tell you why?" Eli shook his head. "She died when I was 12. Cancer. But she made me promise, made me practice every night. Said that one day, someone would need to hear them." Mrs. Sunhee was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to her son. "Leave us." Dae-hyun's eyes widened. "Mother, leave us." It wasn't a request. It was gravity. Dae-hyun looked at Eli, then at his mother, then back at Eli. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Finally, he gestured to the guards. They filed out, silent and lethal. Dae-hyun followed, but paused at the door. "If he moves wrong—" "He won't," Mrs. Sunhee said softly. The door closed. Eli was alone with the mother of wolves. She moved to the windows, gazing out at the city. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost gentle. "Your grandmother saved my life," she said. "In the mountains, during the winter of 1951. I was 17, running from soldiers. Both sides wanted us dead. Your grandmother found me in a cave, fed me, hid me, taught me how to survive." Eli's heart hammered. His grandmother had never mentioned this. never spoken about the war except in fragments. She made me promise something, Mrs. Sunhee continued. She said, if I ever had power, if I ever controlled anything worth controlling, I would remember her daughter, remember her bloodline. And if they ever needed help, she turned to face Eli, I would answer. I didn't come here for help, Eli said. No, Mrs. Sunhee agreed. You came here to work, to be invisible, to survive. Her eyes hardened. But survival is not living, and debts must be paid. She moved closer, her cane tapping. Your grandmother died believing her sacrifice meant something, that the words she taught you would matter. She studied him. Do you believe that? Eli didn't know how to answer. He'd spent 7 years invisible, safe, forgettable. But his grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. Remember the words, Eli. Promise me. Yes, he said quietly. I believe it. Mrs. Sunhee smiled, a small, dangerous thing. Good, she said, because tomorrow you will stop being a janitor. Dae-hyun was waiting in the hallway when Eli emerged 40 minutes later. The crime lord stood near the elevators, his arms crossed, his expression carved from stone. The guards flanked him, their hands visible now, resting near weapons that weren't concealed anymore. My mother wants you protected, Dae-hyun said, his voice flat. So you will be protected, but understand something, janitor. He stepped closer. I don't know you. I don't trust you. And if this is some kind of It's not, Eli said. Then what is it? Eli met his eyes. A debt being paid. Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. What did my mother tell you? That my grandmother saved her life during the war. And you believe her? Do you think your mother lies? The question hung in the air. One of the guards shifted slightly. Dae-hyun stared at Eli for a long moment, then made a sound that might have been a laugh. No, he said quietly. My mother doesn't lie. She doesn't need to. He turned toward the elevator. Come. You're staying at the main house tonight. I have a shift. Your shift is over. The elevator descended in silence. 23 floors of glass and steel dropping toward the underground garage. Eli's reflection stared back at him from the polished doors. Tired eyes, grey uniform, a life built on invisibility. But something had changed. The greeting, the words, the debt. The elevator opened to a garage filled with vehicles that cost more than houses. A black SUV waited near the exit, engine running, windows tinted dark enough to hide bodies. Dae-hyun gestured. Get in. Eli hesitated. This was the moment. The choice. He could refuse. Walk away. Return to his apartment in Inglewood. His simple life. His safety. But his grandmother's voice whispered again. The words, matter, Eli. He got in. The SUV pulled onto Wilshire Boulevard, heading west toward the hills. Los Angeles spread around them. The lights, the traffic, the endless sprawl. They passed the Ambassador Hotel site, the La Brea tar pits, the mansions of Hancock Park. Dae-hyun sat across from Eli, his phone buzzing constantly. He ignored it. His eyes never left Eli's face. The greeting you spoke, he said finally. Do you know what it means? My grandmother said it acknowledged family, blood before names. It's more than that. Dae-hyun leaned forward. In the old country, before the war, There were villages in the mountains, places the government never reached. They had their own laws, their own language, and they protected each other absolutely. His voice dropped. That greeting was a bond. It meant your family and mine were tied together, that our survival was shared. My grandmother never told me that, because it was dangerous. If the wrong people knew your bloodline carried that connection, they could use it, exploit it, kill you for it. The SUV climbed into the hills, winding through narrow roads lined with gates and security cameras. They passed estates hidden behind hedges, properties that didn't appear on maps. My mother built everything on those old bonds, Dae-hyun continued. The syndicate, the businesses, the protection networks. She took the village rules and brought them to America, made them survive in a world that wanted to erase them. And now? Eli asked. Now she believes you're owed something. A debt from the war. Dae-hyun's eyes hardened. But debts in our world aren't paid with money, Janitor. They're paid with blood, with loyalty, with sacrifice. The SUV stopped at a gate. Iron, 12 feet tall, topped with cameras. It opened silently. Beyond it, a house rose from the hillside like a temple. Welcome, Dae-hyun said quietly, to the place where wolves are born. The house wasn't what Eli expected. He'd imagined something ostentatious, gold fixtures, marble statues, the kind of wealth that screamed rather than whispered. Instead, the home was traditional, almost austere. Dark wood and paper screens, stone floors, a garden visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminated by lanterns that cast dancing shadows. Mrs. Sun-hee waited in the main room, seated on a low cushion, a tea service arranged before her. She'd changed from her hanbok into simpler clothing, but her presence remained unchanged, absolute, immovable. Sit, she said, gesturing to the cushion across from her. Eli sat. Dae-hyun remained standing near the door, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Sun-hee poured tea with movements so precise they seemed choreographed. She slid a cup toward Eli. Drink. He drank. The tea was bitter, earthy, tasting of mountains and smoke. Your grandmother, Mrs. Sun-hee said, was the bravest person I ever met. She was 16 when the war came. Her village was in the mountains near the Chinese border, strategic, valuable. Both sides wanted it. She paused, staring into her tea. They came at night, the soldiers. They burned everything, killed everyone who couldn't run fast enough. Eli's throat tightened. His grandmother had never spoken of this, never shared the horror. Ji-ah ran with her younger brother, Mrs. Sun-hee continued. She was supposed to escape south to safety, but her brother was sick, couldn't keep up, so she hid him in a cave and went back. Her eyes lifted to Eli's. Went back to a burning village, to find medicine, to steal food from soldiers. Did she find it? Eli asked quietly. Yes, and she found me. Mrs. Sun-hee's voice softened. I was hiding in a rice storage building, 17, alone. My family was dead. The soldiers were hunting anyone left alive. Ji-ah found me, gave me half her stolen food and told me to follow her to the cave. She sipped her tea. We lived there for 3 months, in the mountains, eating roots and snow. Your grandmother kept her brother alive, kept me alive, taught us how to survive when survival seemed impossible. Mrs. Sun-hee's hand tightened around her cup. And when the spring came, when we could finally move, she made me promise something. What? That if I survived, if I ever had power, I would remember her bloodline, and if they ever needed me, I would come. Eli felt the weight of it. 60 years of waiting, of remembering, of carrying a debt that could never be forgotten. My grandmother never asked for anything, he said. No, She died believing the promise would never be called, that her family was safe in America. Mrs. Sunhee's eyes burned. But debts don't disappear because they're not collected. They grow. They wait. And tonight, when you spoke those words, you called the debt due. I didn't mean to. Intention doesn't matter. Blood matters, and you carry her blood. Mrs. Sunhee stood, her cane striking the floor. Your grandmother saved my life, so now I will save yours. My life doesn't need saving, Eli said. Dae-hyun laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You think working as a janitor is living? You think being invisible is safety? He stepped forward. How much do you make, janitor? 30,000 a year? 40? How much debt are you carrying? How long until your body gives out from night shifts and no sleep? Eli didn't answer, because Dae-hyun was right. He was drowning slowly. Had been for years. My mother is offering you a way out, Dae-hyun said. A real one, but it comes with a price. What price? Mrs. Sunhee answered. Loyalty, trust, and the willingness to see the world as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. She moved closer. I am old, Eli Turner. My body is failing. My time is ending. But before I die, I must ensure my son's empire doesn't collapse into chaos, that the bonds we built survive. She glanced at Dae-hyun, and something painful crossed her face. There are those who would destroy everything I built, who believe my son is weak because he honors the old ways, who think power comes from violence alone. Her voice hardened. They are wrong, and you are going to help me prove it. Eli's heart pounded. How? By being what you've always been, Mrs. Sunhee said. Invisible, observant, forgotten. She smiled. By being the janitor who sees everything. Dae-hyun didn't sleep that night. He stood on the terrace overlooking Los Angeles, smoking a cigarette he'd rolled himself, watching the city lights blur into dawn. Behind him, the house was silent, except for the soft footsteps of guards changing shifts. His phone buzzed. A message from his second-in-command, Park Min-jun. What's happening? Everyone's talking about the janitor. Dae-hyun didn't respond. Instead, he crushed the cigarette under his heel and went inside. His mother was awake, seated in her private study, surrounded by ledgers and documents written in the old script. She looked up as he entered. You're angry, she said. I'm confused. Dae-hyun closed the door. You brought a stranger into our home, a janitor. Because he spoke some words grandmother taught him. Those words are not some words. They are a covenant. A covenant from 70 years ago. From a war that's over. From a world that doesn't exist anymore. He gestured toward the city. This is our world now, Mother. Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco. We control shipping, real estate, entertainment. We don't need mountain village mysticism. Mrs. Sunhee set down her pen carefully. You think the old ways are irrelevant? I think they're dangerous. They make us predictable, make us weak. Then you have forgotten what made us strong. Her voice was soft, lethal. You think power comes from violence? From money? From fear? She stood, moving toward him. Power comes from trust, Dae-hyun. From bonds that cannot be broken. From debts that must be honored. And you trust this janitor? I trust his blood. I trust the woman who saved my life. I trust that debts matter more than anything else in this world. She touched his face gently. And I trust that you have forgotten this, that the men around you have made you forget. Dae-hyun pulled away. My advisors. Your advisors want you weak, Mrs. Sunhee interrupted. They whisper that the old ways are dead, that honor is a weakness, that you should rule through fear alone. Her eyes blazed. And you listen to them because they make you feel modern, progressive, American. That's not fair. It's true. She moved back to her desk. There is a snake in your organization, Dae-hyun. Someone close to you, someone who wants me dead and you controllable. She picked up a document, slid it across the desk. And Eli Turner is going to help us find him. Dae-hyun picked up the document. It was a surveillance report, detailed, professional. It showed meetings between one of his senior advisors, Lee Jun-ho, and members of a rival syndicate in San Francisco. His blood went cold. Jun-ho, he whispered. For 6 months, he's been building alliances, positioning himself, waiting for the right moment to move against you. Mrs. Sunhee's voice was gentle. He believes I am the only thing stopping him, that when I die, you will be easy to manipulate. How did you? Because I am old, not blind. She gestured to the papers. Eli Turner spent 7 years invisible in that medical tower. He saw meetings, overheard conversations, learned who was loyal and who was not. He will do the same for us. Dae-hyun stared at the report. Jun-ho had been with him for 12 years, a trusted advisor, a friend. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked. Because I needed to be certain, and because you needed to see it yourself. Mrs. Sunhee touched his shoulder. You are my son. You are strong, but you have surrounded yourself with men who profit from your blindness. Dae-hyun felt something crack inside him. Anger, betrayal, shame. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. Nothing. Yet. Mrs. Sunhee returned to her desk. Let Jun-ho believe he is safe. Let him continue planning. And let Eli Turner become invisible again. Only this time, he will be invisible in the places that matter most. Dae-hyun looked at the report again, at the photos, the transcripts. And when we have enough evidence? Mrs. Sunhee's smile was cold. Then we remind everyone what happens when debts are not honored. Eli woke to sunlight streaming through paper screens. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then memory returned. The greeting, Mrs. Sunhee, the house in the hills. He sat up slowly, his body aching from sleeping on the floor mat. A knock at the door. Come in, he said. A young woman entered carrying a tray with breakfast, rice, soup, grilled fish. She bowed slightly, set the tray down, and left without speaking. Eli ate alone, tasting flavors his grandmother had once cooked. Memories flooded back. Her small apartment in Inglewood, the smell of kimchi fermenting in jars, the way she'd taught him Korean words in secret, like they were treasures. Remember the greeting, Eli. It's important. He'd thought she was being sentimental, preserving a culture that was fading, but she'd been preserving a debt, a promise, a connection. After breakfast, Dae-hyun found him in the garden. Walk with me, the crime lord said. They moved through the garden in silence. Stone paths, carefully pruned trees, a small pond with koi swimming in endless circles. The morning was cool, the air smelling of jasmine. My mother told you about Jun-ho, Dae-hyun said finally. Yes. And she explained what she wants you to do? Watch, listen, report what I see. Dae-hyun stopped near the pond. You understand what you're agreeing to? If Jun-ho discovers what you're doing, he will kill you, slowly, publicly, to send a message. I understand. Then why agree? You could walk away, go back to your life. My mother would let you. Eli watched the koi circling. My grandmother spent 30 years in America, working minimum wage jobs, raising my mother alone, never asking for help. She died in a county hospital because she couldn't afford better care. He looked at Dae-hyun. She saved Mrs. Sun-hee's life, and she died believing that sacrifice meant nothing, that the promise was forgotten. And you want to prove her wrong? I want to honor her. Dae-hyun studied him for a long moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone desperate, someone I could control. He smiled faintly. Instead, I get someone who understands debt. They walked further into the garden. Dae-hyun's phone buzzed repeatedly, but he ignored it. Junho is hosting a gathering tomorrow night, he said. Business partners, city officials, people who matter. It's at a restaurant in Koreatown, exclusive, private. The kind of place where deals are made. You want me there? As a server. The owner owes us. He'll hire you for the night, no questions asked. Dae-hyun's eyes hardened. Junho trusts me. He won't suspect surveillance, but he might speak freely when he thinks no one important is listening. And if I hear something, you tell my mother. No one else. Not even me. Dae-hyun turned to face him fully. My mother believes you're trustworthy, that your grandmother's blood makes you loyal. I hope she's right, Janitor. Because if she's wrong, we all die. Eli met his eyes. She's not wrong. Dae-hyun nodded slowly. Then tomorrow night, you become invisible again. Only this time, you'll be the most important person in the room. The restaurant was called Jade Moon. It occupied the second floor of a building on Western Avenue, accessible only through a private entrance and elevator. The dining room was elegant, dark wood, low lighting, tables arranged for privacy. Eli arrived at 5 in the afternoon, wearing a server's uniform the owner had provided. Black pants, white shirt, black vest. Invisible. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Hwang, had explained the rules quickly. You serve. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't remember anything you hear. Understand? Eli nodded. Good. Because the people coming tonight are dangerous. The wrong word, the wrong look, and you disappear. By 7, the restaurant was full. Eli moved between tables, pouring water, delivering dishes, clearing plates. He recognized some faces from the news, a state senator, a real estate developer, a tech CEO, and Junho. Lee Junho sat at the center table, commanding the room with his presence. He was younger than Dae-hyun, maybe 40, with sharp features and expensive clothes, a gold watch, diamond cufflinks, the kind of man who measured power in possessions. Around him sat his allies, men from San Francisco, Vancouver, Seattle. Eli recognized some from the surveillance photos Mrs. Sun-hee had shown him. He served their table carefully, head down, movements practiced. More wine, Junho said without looking at him. Eli poured, listened. Dae-hyun is too soft, someone was saying. A man from San Francisco, his accent thick. He listens to his mother too much, makes decisions based on emotion. Tradition, Junho corrected. He calls it tradition, honor, the old ways. He sipped his wine. But the old ways are dying. And when his mother dies, everything changes. How long does she have? Another voice asked. Months, maybe less. The doctors say her heart is failing. Eli's hand trembled slightly as he poured. He steadied it. And when she's gone? The San Francisco man asked. Junho smiled. When she's gone, Dae-hyun will need guidance, support, someone to help him navigate the transition. He gestured around the table. Someone who understands that the future belongs to those willing to take it. You're planning a move, another voice. I'm planning survival for all of us. Junho leaned back. The Korean syndicates in America are fractured. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, we fight each other while the Russians and Mexicans take everything. It's time we unified, under leadership that understands modern business. And Dae-hyun can keep his title, his respect, his traditions. Junho's voice hardened. But real power, real control, that belongs to us. The table murmured agreement. Plans were discussed, shipping routes, political connections, money laundering operations. Eli absorbed every word, his mind cataloging details. Then Junho's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his expression changed. When? He asked, sharply. Pause. Keep watching. Report anything unusual. He hung up, his jaw tight. Problem? The San Francisco man asked. Maybe. Maybe not. Junho's eyes swept the room, suspicious suddenly. Someone's asking questions. About me, about meetings, about money. Who? I don't know yet, but I'll find out. He stood. Excuse me, I need to make some calls. He walked toward the private rooms in the back. Eli continued serving, his heart pounding. 10 minutes later, Junho returned. His expression was calm again, controlled. He sat, smiled, resumed conversation. But Eli had seen it, the moment of fear, the crack in the armor. Junho was paranoid, worried, vulnerable. When the dinner ended at midnight, Eli helped clean. Mr. Huang approached him in the kitchen. You did well. No problems. Eli nodded. Come back Thursday. Same job, same pay. Thank you. Eli left through the service entrance, stepping into the cool night air. A car was waiting. Black sedan, tinted windows. The door opened. Mrs. Sunhee sat inside. Get in, she said. Eli got in. The car pulled away from the curb, heading toward the hills. Well? Mrs. Sunhee asked. Eli told her everything. Every word, every plan, every name. When he finished, Mrs. Sunhee was silent for a long moment. He's moving faster than I expected, she said finally. That makes him more dangerous, but also more reckless. She looked at Eli. You heard him mention someone asking questions? Yes. That's me. I've been careful, but he's noticed, which means we're running out of time. Her eyes hardened. Junho will move soon, possibly before I die naturally. He'll want to control the narrative, control my son. What do we do? Mrs. Sunhee smiled, cold, final. We force his hand. 3 days later, Mrs. Sunhee collapsed. It happened in her garden, mid-morning, while she was feeding the koi. One moment she was standing, the next she was on the ground, her cane skittering across stone. Dae-hyun found her, carried her inside, called the doctors. By evening, the house was filled with whispers and fear. Eli watched from the edges, invisible again. He saw the doctors conferring quietly, saw Dae-hyun's hands shaking as he poured himself whiskey, saw the guards exchanging worried glances, and he saw Junho arrive. Lee Junho entered the house like he owned it, his expression appropriately concerned, his movements confident. He went straight to Dae-hyun, placed a hand on his shoulder. How is she? He asked. Not good, Dae-hyun said hoarsely. The doctors say her heart is failing. They give her days, maybe hours. Junho's expression was perfect, shocked, grieving, supportive. I'm sorry, my friend. She was a great woman. She still is, Dae-hyun snapped. Of course. Of course. Junho squeezed his shoulder. Whatever you need. I'm here. Eli watched from the doorway. Watched Junho's eyes sweep the room, calculating, planning. Later, when Junho stepped onto the terrace to make phone calls, Eli followed. He stayed in the shadows, listening. She's dying. Faster than expected. Junho's voice was low. We move tomorrow night. During the funeral preparations, everyone will be distracted. Pause. Yes. I'll handle Daehyun. You handle the outer circle. Make sure they understand the new structure. Pause. No witnesses, no loose ends. Junho hung up, stood there for a moment staring at the city lights. Then he turned, saw Eli. Who are you? He asked sharply. Eli bowed his head. Server, sir. Mr. Huang sent me to help with preparations. Junho studied him. Eli kept his eyes down, his posture submissive. You overheard my call. No, sir, I just arrived. Junho stepped closer. You look familiar. I work in Koreatown. Many restaurants. Junho's eyes narrowed. Then he dismissed Eli with a gesture. Go. Make yourself useful. Eli bowed again and left. His heart was hammering. Junho was moving tomorrow night, during the funeral chaos, planning to kill anyone who might oppose him, planning to kill Daehyun. Eli found Mrs. Sunhee in her room. She was awake, propped up on pillows, her face pale, but her eyes sharp. You heard? She asked. Yes. Good. She gestured to a chair. Sit. Eli sat. Mrs. Sunhee studied him for a long moment. I'm not dying, she said calmly. Eli blinked. What? The collapse. The doctors. The fear. She smiled faintly. Theater. To make Junho confident. To make him move while we're ready. You planned this? I planned for Junho to reveal himself, to commit to a timeline, to show us exactly who his allies are. She shifted in the bed. And tomorrow night, when he moves, we will be waiting. What do you need me to do? Mrs. Sunhee's expression hardened. I need you to protect my son. Junho will try to kill him during the chaos, quietly. Make it look like an accident or an attack from enemies. You will stay close to Daehyun. Watch his back. And if Junho makes a move, I stop him. Yes. Mrs. Sunhee reached for something under her pillow. A knife. Small, sharp, ancient. She held it out to Eli. This belonged to your grandmother. She left it with me during the war. For protection. Now I return it to her blood. Eli took the knife. The handle was worn smooth, the blade still sharp. Tomorrow night, Mrs. Sunhee said quietly, debts will be paid in blood. And the wolves will remember why they should fear the mountains. The funeral preparations began at dusk. The house filled with mourners, syndicate members, business partners, family. They came dressed in black, their faces appropriately somber, their whispers filling the halls. Mrs. Sunhee remained in her room, dying peacefully, while Daehyun greeted guests with red eyes and a tight jaw. Eli moved through the crowd, invisible in servers' clothes, watching everything. He saw Junho arrive with his allies from San Francisco and Seattle. Saw them position themselves strategically throughout the house, saw the nods, the signals, the preparation. By 9, the house was packed, incense burned, prayers were offered, people spoke in hushed tones about Mrs. Sunhee's legacy, her strength, her vision, and in the chaos, Junho moved. Eli saw him gesture to Dae-hyun, pulling him aside toward the private study, saw 2 of Junho's men follow, their hands inside their jackets. Eli followed. The study was empty when they arrived. Dae-hyun stood near the window, his back to the door. Junho entered behind him, his men flanking the exits. "I wanted to speak privately," Junho said. Dae-hyun turned. "About what?" "About the future. About what happens when your mother passes. About leadership." Dae-hyun's eyes narrowed. "This isn't the time." "It's exactly the time. When transition is happening, decisions must be made." Junho stepped closer. "You're a good man, Dae-hyun. Honorable. But honor alone doesn't hold an empire together. You need structure, strategy, people who understand the modern world. People like you." "Yes." Junho's voice was smooth. "I've been preparing for this, building alliances, ensuring stability. When your mother dies, the syndicate will fracture unless we move quickly. We? You and me. Partners. You provide the legacy, the name, the tradition. I provide the execution." Dae-hyun stared at him. "You want control. I want survival, for all of us." Junho gestured. "Your mother's way was beautiful, poetic, but it's dying with her. The old debts, the old promises, they don't matter in Los Angeles. What matters is power, real power." Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. "My mother's way built everything you enjoy. And I'm grateful. But gratitude doesn't stop bullets, doesn't prevent the Russians from taking our ports, or the Mexicans from taking our streets." Junho's voice hardened. "Change is coming, Dae-hyun. The question is whether you lead it or die with the past." One of Junho's men shifted, his hand moving toward his jacket. Eli stepped from the shadows. "Mr. Park needs you in the main hall," he said to Dae-hyun, his voice respectful. Junho spun. "Who the hell?" "The server," Eli said calmly. "From the restaurant." Recognition flashed in Junho's eyes, then suspicion. "What did you hear?" "Nothing, sir. Just delivering a message." Junho's hand moved toward his own jacket. "I don't believe you." The door behind them opened. Mrs. Sunhee walked in, not dying, not weak, strong, steady, her eyes blazing. "Mother," Dae-hyun started. "Sit down," she commanded. Dae-hyun sat. Mrs. Sunhee moved toward Junho, her cane tapping. "Did you truly believe I was dying?" Junho's face paled. "The doctors lied. At my instruction." She gestured to Eli. "And my invisible friend here has been listening to your plans for weeks. Every meeting, every betrayal, every promise you made to destroy my family." Junho's men reached for their guns. The door opened again. Dae-hyun's loyal guards entered, 6 of them, armed, positioned. Junho froze. "You think honor is weakness?" Mrs. Sunhee said quietly. "You think debts are irrelevant? You think the old ways should die with me?" She stepped closer. "But you forgot something important, Junho. You forgot that the old ways survived because they were ruthless, because debts were paid in blood." She struck her cane on the floor. "Your debt is due." Junho lunged for his gun. Eli moved faster. The knife his grandmother had carried during the war, the blade Mrs. Sunhee had kept for 60 years, flashed once. Junho gasped, his hand stopping halfway to his weapon. Blood spread across his shirt. He fell to his knees. "You," he choked. "I paid a debt. Eli said quietly. The way my grandmother taught me. Junho collapsed. Mrs. Sun-hee looked at his men. Leave. Tell the others. Tell them what happens when promises are broken. They ran. Mrs. Sun-hee turned to Dae-hyun, who was staring at Junho's body in shock. The old ways, she said gently, are not weak, my son. They are simply patient. By morning, the house was quiet again. Junho's body had been removed. His allies had scattered. The mourners had left, their whispers carrying the truth to every corner of Koreatown. Mrs. Sun-hee sat in her garden, feeding the koi as the sun rose over Los Angeles. Eli joined her. How do you feel? She asked. Strange, Eli admitted. Like I've been living someone else's life and just woke up. In a way you have. Mrs. Sun-hee scattered food across the water. Your grandmother's life, her debt, her promise, it lived in you, waiting. And now? Now it's paid. She looked at him. What will you do? Eli had been thinking about that all night. About his apartment in Inglewood, his janitorial job, his invisible life. I don't know, he said honestly. You could stay. Work for us. You have value here. As what? A killer? As someone who understands that loyalty matters more than money, that debts must be honored. That blood is stronger than contracts. Mrs. Sun-hee smiled faintly. The syndicate needs people like that, people who remember the old ways. Eli watched the koi swimming. And if I leave, then you leave with my gratitude and my protection. Anywhere you go in this city, you will be safe, respected, remembered. She stood slowly. But understand something, Eli Turner. You are no longer invisible. You killed a traitor in my home, protected my son, honored your grandmother's debt. Her eyes held his. You are one of us now, whether you wear the title or not. Dae-hyun appeared on the terrace, looking exhausted but alive. The others are asking about him, he said, gesturing to Eli. Let them ask, Mrs. Sun-hee said. Let them wonder. Mystery is useful. Dae-hyun smiled faintly. You're not dying. Not today. She touched his face. But someday. And when I do, you must remember what I taught you. Honor is not weakness. Debts are not burdens. And the old ways survive, because they are true. Dae-hyun nodded. Then he looked at Eli. Thank you, he said quietly, for saving my life, for honoring your grandmother, for reminding us what loyalty means. Eli nodded. Later, when the sun was fully up and the city was waking, Eli walked to the edge of the property. Los Angeles spread below him, the traffic, the buildings, the endless sprawl. His phone buzzed. A text from the medical tower. They wanted to know why he'd missed his shifts, when he'd be back. Eli deleted the message, because Mrs. Sun-hee was right. He wasn't invisible anymore, and maybe he never really had been. Maybe his grandmother's debt had been guiding him all along, teaching him, preparing him for this moment, for this choice, for the understanding that blood, honor, and loyalty mattered more than anything else in a world that tried to forget. Behind him, Mrs. Sun-hee and Dae-hyun were talking quietly, planning, rebuilding. The syndicate would survive, stronger than before, wiser, and Eli Turner, janitor, observer, invisible man, was part of it now. Not because he wanted power, but because debts must be paid and promises must be kept, even if they take 70 years.